Hi kids, how you doing? All good, I hope. Today I'm going to walk you through how I go about making jams for the weekend jams. First thing I tend to look for, being a bit of a groove merchant, is some kind of rhythmical element. Either a drum pattern that I kind of like, or as in this case, a bass line. I go through, I pick the notes, I try and get a feel for a groove. I might add some notes in, slow down the tempo until I get something that I quite like. Another way that I might emphasise the groove, for example the first beat of the bar, is to change the gate times, because a longer gate time kind of reinforces where you are at the beginning. Talking of which, if the pattern warrants it, I might then change it so that it extends over 2 bars, so it's a slightly longer pattern anyway, which is something you can do on the tracks. And then tweak the sounds and adjust them so that they suit the mood of the track. What's the point of having synthesizers with real-time controls and with a big flexibility of sonic palette if you don't use that on occasion? This, for instance, took me about 5 minutes, so it's not necessarily a long process to get that solid base that I can then go on from. Next I will start adding layers on. So for this particular track that I'm playing around with, I started putting on chord structure. Very simple chord structure, but it's something that allows me to then have an idea of where I'm going musically with it. And this is something that I've started thinking about recently, how the musical structure works. I've ended up with some skanky chords on this, which helps to drive the groove and keep things going, and it changes the way that you think about the bass line because it kind of locks it into steps, and that kind of rhythmical element is important for me. Now I just repeat and I add layers and I add layers and I add layers until I've pretty much filled the tracks up and I've got all the 4 kind of sample percussion lines and the 2 synth lines completely filled up. As I'm filling out the tracks and adding different layers, if I feel it warrants it, I might go back to another track, say I might go back to the bass or I might go back to the keys, and I might fill out a little bit more just to give the track, the whole tune, a little bit more depth. And then I will add notes in there to give it a bit more flavour, and then add some chance elements to that. So there is a part where I am adding elements and tweaking as I go along. If I haven't started on the samples, I will then usually add that at the end, because I quite like the capability of actually having samples on a track, and really the tracks is more of a drum machine with a couple of synths rather than being able to add nice sampled elements on there, which is something I quite like. So the next step is to play with those patterns and start thinking about how they work together. And that's when I will use the feature on the tracks where you can group them together into little patterns, switch button patterns on the mix page. That's amazingly useful because you don't have to think about going into the patterns page to change the structure of what you're playing. I love that feature. It really makes a big difference for live jamming. And once I've got a few of these variations worked out, I start to think about how to balance. Once I've got the tracks filled up, I will then work with another instrument maybe, or if it's just going to be standalone, I'll start to balance then. But in this example, I wanted to get some samples off of the samples. So I've worked through and I've filled the samples up with tracks which give it some kind of variation and help add something to the overall sound. My balancing up is going to be a lot more complicated here. I have to balance up the samples so everything sounds good within itself, and then balance that up with the tracks and mix the tracks down. So I've got two separate kind of sub buses, if you like. One for the samples and one for the tracks. And then I just balance those submixes together. I can either do that with a mixer like the Flow 8, or one of the things which makes it very quick and very easy to use the tracks is the fact that I've got the audio in there. So the samples are plugged directly into the audio in on the tracks, and then I've panned left and right so that I've got the full stereo spread of the samples. And that is pretty much where it goes to. Quite often I will go back and I will have a tweak of the sounds, so I will just adjust filters and maybe chance parameters and resonance, LFOs, just a bit of tweaking just to see how I can make the track work a little bit better. And when I'm happy with all of that, I will do a straight run through. By the time I've balanced things, I've usually got an idea of where I'm going to go with the track in question. And for a hardware jam, time is of the essence. So I will do a straight run through, one take, there we go, all the way to the end. Most important job is I will listen to the jams that I've made on various different systems to see exactly what I need to do to start the process of polishing. So you might like to join me in the car for a moment. Hi kids, here I am in the car, listening to it. Bass, a bit too heavy, so that might need some tweaking. It's not too bad though. So drop the bass a bit. All the sounds are pretty good though. Right, that's it for today. If you are not a subscriber, I think you should. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed it, press the like button. If If you know somebody else who might like this, make sure you spread it around. And don't forget, kids, as they say at the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation, share and enjoy.